Why should Edmontonians vote for you?
I think it's about experience, but experience in a good way, not with the affiliated council or people who have actually been a part of what we've seen as a decline over the last decade, in my opinion. And so I bring fresh set of eyes, fresh set of experience in coalition building. When I was an MP, one of the key things we did was work effectively with all levels of government to ensure that where we had commonality, we could all sing from the same song sheet. Because in the end of the day, it's just one taxpayer that funds all these different levels of government. So the better we can work together, the better we get results for the city. So I saw that part of the area really break down, that it didn't seem those kind of relationships or those proactive efforts to work together. As I've been back working in the city as a business owner too, it's been very difficult in many areas where we have business and improvement areas like Old Strathcona. These used to be vibrant areas before when I was younger and had businesses and when my family ran businesses. But now, a lot of businesses are fighting to stay alive, dealing with security issues, safety issues, higher costs for doing business. And unfortunately, it's taking a toll. We're seeing a record number for lease signs all over the city, in particular, even White Avenue, downtown, and other areas. A lot of that is contributing to property damage and costs that a lot of businesses can't afford. And so I wanted to get involved to offer a fresh voice, but also because that there's so many people undecided in this election. That means that they believe that the city is headed in the wrong direction. And there's a real opportunity to connect with them and show them that there is a better way and someone who can bring a different level of experience and maybe do things a lot better than we've seen.
Now, our city is growing really quickly. And as mayor, how would you manage some of the challenges that come along with such rapid population growth?
Yeah, this is something that we've seen at different times in our history. I remember the 80s when we had an explosion, early 90s, and then, of course, challenges with the oil sector slowed things down. We're starting to see the ability of Edmonton to grow because of the affordability when you compare to some other Canadian jurisdictions and what the city has to offer. So we need to do two things, in my opinion. One is create economic opportunity, at least open up the doors to make it easier for businesses to come set up, other organizations to set up, because a lot of these people coming to the city are going to need economic support in the sense of good jobs, the ability to be able to set up shop, and then hopefully find housing. Of course, housing is a big challenge in the city and many others, but there's ways to be able to create affordable housing, but also create opportunities for people to be able to buy their own homes. And one of the key factors there is property taxes. We've seen back-to-back increases on property taxes, and I've heard while I've been door knocking from a lot of people that, especially younger families that just got into homes and saying now we have to make a decision because it's going to be so tough to pay our mortgage, but also this record increase in property taxes. So there has to be a better way to manage things in order to focus on the core basic services, the things that we feel, I think, are not being addressed, like the roads, like the snow removal, the garbage, the police, and start getting out of the lane of the things that we shouldn't be in to begin with, because that's what's pushing the pressure up, not increasing the business activity so we can, broaden the tax base, but also not staying in the focus of doing the basic services, which is putting huge pressure on increasing taxes.
I want to pick at your pitch about tax rates. Now, your campaign actually talks about rolling back to 2021 rates, passing a motion prohibiting tax increases for 4 years. That would likely cause a revenue shortfall. So how do you make up that difference?
So there is ways to be able to create the revenue from within. And I wouldn't trust these other councillors who say it can't be done, because they've been part of the problem. They're the ones who have raised the taxes to the level that we had and spend in areas that aren't necessarily in the purview of the city's jurisdiction. I believe we can free up $400 million in some of the accounting that we've seen in creating efficiencies, but not affecting basic services, just getting out of the area of where the city shouldn't be in. But part of that is what I said in the outset, is creating the partnership in a positive way, not like what we've seen recently between the province and the councils fighting and shooting, things over each other's bows, saying, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. This is not healthy for Edmontonians and for the representation.
So how do you change that?
You actually sit down and work with those people from the different levels of government. I gave you the example of when I was an MP. We had an Edmonton caucus that would sit down with the council, sit down with the mayor, sit down with MLAs and the premier to say, okay, there's commonality. We have issues, we have problems. projects, we have areas of concern for all of us at all levels. How can we get behind those things together, sing from the same song sheet? And where we have the differences, let's put those aside for a while, because at the end of the day, everyone gets elected because they want to make things better. There's a commonality there. We have to put our partisanship aside, and that was something that I started to see really growing in an unhealthy way when I was leaving Ottawa. I don't consider myself very partisan. I have friends in every party. Even my own business, we've created a broad base of people, arts communities that get involved in everything. So we need to get back to that respect, that level of coalition building, and leverage the right levels of government so it doesn't put so much pressure on the coffers in Edmonton.
What about transparency? When you were an MP, you faced criticism for having one of your staff members do an interview on your behalf. So how do you maintain and encourage transparency if you are elected?
Well, when mistakes happen, you take responsibility. When that example happened, I tried to cover for my staff, but in the end, I took responsibility for it. And I said, unfortunately, this happened, and I moved forward. I think I got elected 2 other times after that because of the fact that I think people appreciate that things can go wrong, but it's how you handle them. I've never tried to say that I'm perfect, and I think anyone who does, unfortunately, as they say, stones at glass houses. I think one of the things I think people seem to like about me is the fact that I have a track record, but that I'm also relatable. I've been in the community. I've done some things that they can relate to, building business, doing things that add to the contribute to our community. And so I think people are willing to forgive and forget and give people a second chance. I think Edmonton is very much about that, and that's what I'm excited about.